Well, welcome back to another episode. I'm going to bring you a quick one, another one on expansion. This week, as you can tell by the title of the video, we're talking about everyone's probably a little soft spot for them. Tasmania. Although I don't know if we want to bring in another international team. Sorry, more jokes.
International?
No, that would be bringing in a Perth team. Anyway, we're talking about Tasmania. Was one of the front runners for the last round of expansion. They actually don't have a professional team in any code of football. The only professional teams they've got is in the Big Bash League in the cricket and the NBL
basketball. They just got their NBL team.
Yeah, so pretty exciting for Tasmania to get a professional basketball team, but still no football code. Unbelievably, no AFL team considering how big it is down there apparently. But anyway, we're going to dissect we're probably just going to give you our thoughts on whether a Tasmanian team should be in the league and what should it look like and all things in between.
Yeah, that's the point of these videos. We're not necessarily saying this should be the next team. We're kind of just going through, is there any merit to an expansion side in this spot? So that's what we've done with the Gold Coast and with Wollongong. We've looked at the merits and posed some of the maybe questions that could cloud their potential to be an expansion team. And we'll do the same with Tasmania right now. So make sure to leave a like and comment down below and tell us who else we know you guys want to see us chat about a New Zealand team. We want to do some research on it first before we really dive into that one. But let us know who you want to see as an expansion team and us discuss. Of course, I think Sean wants French Island football, but they need someone living there for starters.
Yeah. Well, they get a population of 1, we can talk about it. Cool. Well, some fun facts about Tasmania. It's normally a forgotten state in Australia. It's normally left off a lot of maps, but some fun facts about them. Hobart's the biggest city, about 250,000. If I'm wrong, I will correct myself now. And Launceston, which is a lot smaller, but a bit more centre. It's probably centre on the island, about 80,000. They have the biggest stadium in York Park. I'm not going to give you the University of Tasmania. I'm not giving you the full sponsorship name. And Hobart has Bellarive Oval. I don't know if I've ever pronounced that right, but I guess I'll find out in the comments. Both ovals, obviously, because AFL and cricket are the dominant codes down there. So yeah, that's probably where we're going to start first with a potential Tasmanian A-League team. They don't have a big giant rectangular stadium like we have heaps of in New South Wales and Queensland.
And I think that just shows kind of the heritage of Tasmania, right? They love AFL and they love cricket, and they've been successful cricket-wise. They've got a T20 team and all of that. AFL, it is surprising that they've never gotten an AFL team because they're close to Melbourne, they're close to Victoria, in that regard, and they do like the sport, but the AFL doesn't think there's a market there, and so it does leave them without a rectangular stadium. And to be honest, it just works. It works so much better for football. When you're at a ground that's not a rectangle, it just lessens the experience. And I know it's world over. Italy has heaps of oval stadiums.
I still don't think that's a good look for Italian football.
No, I don't, and I think that's one of the things. And to their credit though, Tasmania, the kind of consortium behind a bit of a bid for an expansion spot for them, they are somewhat committed to trying to provide a rectangle stadium. Do you know much about that?
Well, yeah, I think it's more hearsay, like the local government will commit to a stadium if they get an A-League team. Apparently there might be financial backers, but we really don't know. And I think for me, if we're going to have a Tasmanian team, we need actual commitment and we need to see some kind of progress towards building a stadium. And obviously people are going to go, well, what about Western United? I said, well, I think that's the exact same thing with Western United. There should have been, there has been verbal commitment, and we still haven't seen anything yet. And there's
plans, it's all there, drawn up, ready to go.
And that's affected drawing in fans from Western United.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
The thing is, the Tasmanian team, it's very, we know their identity. They're going to be based in Tasmania. I'd probably play them out of Hobart, the biggest city.
Yeah. There's
a stadium there they can play out of. Obviously, it's an oval. And so, they might play in an oval ground for the first year or two until they get their rectangular stadium. But there has to be commitment to a rectangular stadium.
Yeah.
For me, there has to be.
Absolutely. Now, in terms of, I guess, people like to bring up populations. The old method used to be fish where the fish are. Now it's kind of like fish where the fish are going to be. In terms of Western United and Macarthur, they're kind of booming areas. Is Tasmania big enough. I mean, we've got Gosford in the A-League, we've got Newcastle, Hobart's around a similar size. Is it really a good enough place to put an A-League team?
Oh, I don't think you can go too much off population. You could make the same argument, well, why isn't the NRL expanding into Adelaide or Perth? There's a massive population, but the demand for that sport isn't there.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter how big the city is or how small it is. It all depends on how committed they are to it. We have seen some games played there. Western United taking game. I think Melbourne Victory might have taken pre-season or actual games there in the past. To Launceston, I think, and the crowds haven't been that big. But then you can't really make the argument because it's not really their team.
Yeah.
And I don't think A-League is necessarily a sport that can take games to many different venues to bring in a crowd like maybe AFL. I think they'd be quite successful, and they are taking games to where there is no professional team. Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of interest in a Tasmanian team, probably more than a lot of the expansion teams in the most recent round, a lot more than a Western Melbourne team. Yeah. Or a Southwest Sydney team, or a Southern expansion team. It seemed really up there. It was Canberra, Wollongong and Tasmania were the fan favourites. So I think seems like there is a lot of interest, and I think Tasmanians would be starved of professional football of any code. And so I think it will be well embraced. But how big do you want for crowds? Like you're saying, if there's only 8,000, that's good enough. I think 8,000 right now in the A-League would be a really good turnout considering where we're at the moment. So, I mean, it's really hard to tell if it's there, but I'm confident it is there because there seems to be a lot of good things said about, a lot of merit towards a Tasmanian team.
Yeah, now another thing that people like to say is we can't really be a true national competition if we don't have these teams included. So if Canberra's going to get in, Tasmania should be included too. However, I never ever hear somebody come up with that argument and then say, let's put a team in Darwin. If you're one of those people, tell me why Darwin should be in the competition as well, and I'll maybe give a bit more credit to that argument, because I don't agree with this whole it's got to be a national competition and represent everyone, because if we want pro rel in the future, the reality could be that after 5 seasons, it's 6 teams from New South Wales and 10 teams from Victoria, and that's your top division because that's where the best football teams are and that's where the money is. So
I mean, you can look at the Premier League. There's 2 teams from two from Manchester, there's like 6 from London.
Yeah.
That's almost half the complementary cities out of.
Yeah, so while I understand, yes, we'd love to see teams represented from all over Australia, I don't think that is enough of a criteria to put them into the competition. I think really football should be merit-based, and this isn't. Expansion's not merit-based, it never is. And until we get a full pyramid, we're not going to be merit-based. So maybe, sure, Tasmania gets a team under that, but I think if that's where we're headed, it makes less sense, at least in my mind.
Yeah, you talk a fair bit about the, being a national competition. A majority of the teams are from New South Wales in the A-League already, and I think that's fair enough. Well, whether you think it's fair enough, there's also 3 teams in Melbourne. The majority of the population, over half of the population of Australia is in those 2 states, and so I understand the hurt of everyone else thinking, well, why is there so many teams coming from there? So, even in the old NSL, a lot of the clubs were from Melbourne. A lot of teams were from Sydney. There was a team from Wollongong and Newcastle. I mean, that's where the population is. We have a lot more cities and towns over here. Obviously, there's towns and cities in South Australia and Perth, but there's not many outside of Perth and Adelaide.
And look, in the future, when it is merit-based and there's promotion relegation, we could get to a point where
all the teams are from Perth, or all the teams are from Adelaide.
Or like in Spain, there's a little town. I think they've only got 40,000, which is the population of Bathurst. In the future, those dreams can come to fruition. If Bathurst wants to get into the A-League and they can be good enough, they can get there and be supported by the community. Sure, but at the moment, it's just not viable to put a team where there's not as much population.
But anyway, back on Tasmania. I want to talk about the development of it. Nathaniel Atkinson, A-League Grand Final scorer for Melbourne City last year.
Fantastic player. Yeah.
Have we got any other major players from Tasmania?
Look, for me, I can't actually think of any. Can you?
No, that's why I'm asking you.
Yeah, well, let us know in the comments. Are there any other Tasmanian products who have made it into the A-League or who are playing in the A-League? Because as far as we know, Nathaniel Atkinson's the one big one. And I guess,
I'm sure there's others. I'm sure when you tell us, you'll be like, oh, really?
But I guess that kind of adds to things, doesn't it? You know, when we're talking about Wollongong in our last video, the rich football heritage, the players they've produced in the past kind of say, well, youngsters here love football and they turn into good football players. That maybe isn't the case with Tasmania. And it's a catch-22. Without an A-League club, maybe they never will. But if you're given an A-League club, maybe that inspires juniors.
I think that's the same with Central Coast. I don't know if we had many players coming from the Central Coast, but you put a team there, there's probably going to be a few more than there was before. I think that's a great thing for football to have this area to be able to be represented at a national level and have some of their local players rise up through the ranks.
Yeah, absolutely. Alright, Bradley, well, there are a couple of reasons. Obviously, there's not as much as other teams, other expansion hopefuls for Tasmania. That pretty much covers all the things around there. I don't know. I still don't. I still don't think they make the 16 team A-League. If we go another 4 spots for expansion, I think they miss out, unfortunately. What do you think?
I'd like them to fit in. But obviously, it depends if we're going to 16 before we think about a second tier comp. You know, I think I'd like a team like Canberra, for sure. A team like Wollongong. I'd love to throw Tasmania in there. I don't know. I think it's a definitely hard one because it's a market that really hasn't been tested at a professional level in the full football codes, and so that's why I think it might hold it back. But I'd love it. I think it'd be very niche. It'd be very unique for it. To be the first football code to have a Tasmanian team, I think that'd be fantastic.
Yeah.
I'd like it to work. But I think there are quite a few challenges. There's no rectangular stadium at all. That would have to be built, and that's all on the promises of politicians and owners. But if they were to get in, would that still actually happen? Who knows? I think it'd be fantastic. I think there's a lot more hurdles for them just based on where they are on the map.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree there. So let us know what you think down in the comments. Should Tasmania be in with a shot of an expansion team? Would you like to see the Tassie Devils in the A-League? Let us know.
Tigers.
The Tassie Tigers, yeah, that'd be great as well. Let us know.
The Jack Jumpers.
Terrible name. Let us know what you think down in the comments and have your say. We're all couch critics, and so we'll see ya in the next video.